Hi, I'm Kim Crufts from the Scriber Media Center, and today I'll be speaking with Madeline Ford and Ken Blackwood about the placement program for the high school students at the Scriber Public Library. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me, guys. And I'll start with Mr. Blackwood. Can you tell us about what you do? What's your position at the school?
Absolutely, thank you. So I'm Ken Blackwood. I've been a teacher at Lake Superior High School for, over 27 years now. Pretty much started off teaching science, and I've gotten into, in the last several years, the co-op position as well. So I run the co-op program here at Lake Superior High School. It's been very interesting for sure.
Could you tell me a little bit about how it works and what it does for the students?
For sure. Yeah, the co-op program itself is an experiential learning program. So we try to match students up with possible job opportunities in the communities. And we try to match them with things that might be of interest to them in terms of future or just to get experience in the job and what a job is all about. So it's really differentiated for each and every student because everybody has different interests. And that's the gist of it. That's the main goal, is just to sort of give the student experience, and they can gain credits while working at a job, and there's your real world learning right there.
Yeah, makes sense. I was going to ask you about the credits, but you touched on that. So every bit of work they do goes towards credits for their their end of their results for the school year, I guess, eh?
Yeah, that's correct. So students have, in general, there's no limit on how many credits they can earn through co-op. They obviously have to do a certain number of credits within their 4 years of high school. And some of those are credits that have to be done, but co-op can cover a variety of other ones as well. So some of their choice types of credits.
Well, thanks, Ken. I'll get back to you in a few minutes, but I'd like to introduce Madeline Ford. She is a pupil at the Lake Superior High School, and she is a co-op student at the Scriber Public Library. Hi, Madeline.
Hi.
I'd just like to ask you, first of all, a little bit about yourself, what grade you're in and what you're studying.
Well, I'm in grade 11. So right now I'm doing co-op as well as a few other courses, but my main goal at the end of the year is to finish a few science courses and get a few extra credits there so I can hopefully join healthcare in the future.
Oh, wonderful. That's a good cause. Whatever made you decide to take on the co-op job at the library of all places?
Well, out of all my options, that seemed most interesting to me and most relatable. I've definitely done a few, it just seemed like it'd be all media related, and I've done a lot of research into technology addiction and whatnot. And I thought I'd definitely be able to relate my work to what we'd be doing there.
Wonderful. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm actually glad you chose the library because like you mentioned, we have a media literacy program there, which is where the Scriber Media Center originates out of. So we're very glad to have you around, to have you there to help us out. So Madeline, how important do you think it is to study media in school? And do you have the opportunity right now in the high school? Because I know some schools don't have programs in place.
I haven't come across any programs relating to the media studies exactly, but yeah, I think it's definitely important right now because going back through online and back in person, it can be difficult using different platforms and knowing about media and all that. There's a lot of things you should be aware of and the dangers and whatnot. I think that's definitely important. Any student should know.
Do you find that youth, especially the kids from your generation, are more interested in, or would you think they're less interested in pursuing media? I know you see a lot of young people, especially on their phones all the time. They're always connected with each other, but it's not necessarily for creating any kind of programming or content. It's usually just chatting, but the technology is there. Do you think that is used at all when people, for instance, your age, are you considering the impact of any content that you would be creating?
Definitely. I think, I think that's actually a big thing. Most of the teenagers or young children use such platforms like social media as a form of communication. And I think a lot of people like to take that communication to make media, and they'll make films and stuff, maybe even to share about their cultures or just share their personal experiences with each other. I think that's a form of communication in a way, and it allows us students to learn more about other people and things they don't normally would learn just in a school setting.
And the technology, of course, now everybody has a cell phone, so it makes it a lot more accessible.
Oh, definitely. I think that's a big issue, especially with COVID right now and everything being online. It doesn't help that we definitely need a technology to go forward. Like nowadays, if you show up to school without your computer right away, you get sent home because that's where all your work is. You can't do anything at that point, and it can be very difficult with people who struggle to manage their time with their technology devices. I definitely went through issues with that, so I got rid of my phone. But then when you get to that point, you need your phone for a lot of things, whether it's banking, contacting people, even just getting in touch with the school on days you need to get off, or appointments, stuff like that. It's very necessary in our today's society.
But it seems that even while kids are in school and they're learning, they're constantly got their phone in their hand and they're chatting back and forth, whether it's making comments about what the teacher's wearing or about where they're going after class. That type of tool, is that intrusive at all to teaching, Mr. Blackwood? I'll ask you that question.
Well, you're sort of asking an old school teacher that question, and we've had some sort of arguments, I should say, discussions about it in our staff meetings at times, because some teachers see it differently than, for example, I do. Mm-hmm. My take on it is I don't really let the students use their phones during class because of the distraction, right? Mm-hmm. And there are studies out there that say, if your phone's with you, even if you're not using it, it's going to be a distraction because that's all you can think about. It's hard to focus. So that's one of the rules that I try to have in my class that I make very clear. And other teachers are a little less worried about it, I guess. And we most of our students now have laptops, so they have some sort of technology with them at their desk anyway. So having the phone there really is something that they don't need two things. So that's my reasoning on it. And a lot of the teachers now, we're trying to work in breaks where students will be given 10 minutes every 40 minutes or so to take their texts and check their phones and just take that stress off their mind a little bit. So we do know it's a problem, and we do have things in place to try to work around it.
Yeah, I find it strange. I mean, there is a whole new generation. Back in my day as well, you might be slipping notes back and forth to each other, but it wasn't like 100% distracting. But it seems that some of the youth, especially today, they seem to be evolving or adapting to be doing much more with multitasking, because like I had mentioned earlier, I was watching a couple of kids who were online doing their studies, and they're literally sitting there listening to songs in the earpiece. They're on their phone chatting with each other while they're in class, and it seems like the last thing they're paying attention to is actual studies that are happening on the screen in front of them. And I just found it very strange. I don't think I'd be able to do that myself, but yeah. But Madeline, you got rid of your phone, you said, eh?
Yes, I definitely found it very intrusive in my life. It just caused problems, like just with work and managing my time and getting things done on the job, or even when I'm at school. It was definitely, like Mr. Blackwood mentioned, it was a huge distraction. Like even just my family contacting me while I'm in school, and that was a distraction itself, or just wanting to do something other than my studies was definitely, I would definitely choose my phone, something more entertaining than writing an essay.
Easy to understand, yeah. Let's just go back to that question that I wanted to ask you earlier, and that is, what role does social media play in your generation?
Well, like I said, it's definitely a huge communication for teens nowadays. Even young adults definitely use that to get out personal problems they're having, or like just finding out who they are and whatnot. For my specific generation, I definitely think that it's more for entertainment than an actual productive use. Personally, I don't use social media, but when I do, it's mostly for an outlet for information. I definitely think It's a great way to figure out things that you normally wouldn't experience every day, like traveling different countries or just different facts about like bacteria that can be spread in other countries. That's something I learned about recently. There's just a lot of that on there.
One of the other things that seems to be a real big topic right now, especially if you look at TikTok and stuff like that, is the idea of how we define gender. It seems to be something that's really on the minds of a lot of youth. And it seems to be in the past, those issues would have been hidden or buried a little bit. And now it's just not only come to the forefront, but it screams at you almost every day. Do you think that that discussion would allow maybe a little bit more maybe of acceptance for students to realize who they are, who they want to be, and as a way of just validating themselves, really?
Oh, 100%. I think for sure that it helps make people feel more open-minded about it too. I think that's why it's so often that you see it nowadays is social media. It spread awareness about it and let people feel comfortable, like becoming more open.
Yeah, so those are all positive points, Madeline, and I'm sure it is actually empowering a younger generation to actually be more of themselves rather than worrying about the oppression that a lot of people suffered in the past, especially. But now, what would you say in regards to the abuse of that technology and maybe misinformation? Because information and misinformation can be spread just as easily. And then how do we distinguish between, let's say, truth or somebody's ideal of what a truth might be?
Definitely. I'm not too sure how exactly you would distinguish that yet because it's very difficult. I mean, it's like misinformation is a very common occurrence when using social media. So just as in person, one word can like create 1,000 rumors. People will take it as far as they can. So you can't ever really distinguish it. I would say. Um, I'm not too sure, really. I don't know how you would be. I still haven't been able to.
Yeah, because I still have this feeling that a lot of the times, you see people running around with cell phones all the time and maybe capturing people on video or whatever. That's not necessarily good for them, maybe to use to disgrace them even or put them down. We get a lot of that stuff now that we all can see stuff as it's happening as well.
Mhm.
Ken, do you have anything that you might think you want to say about that?
Sure. You know what? First of all, I'll just mention a little bit about, because you were talking about media studies a while back.
Yeah.
I mean, at the school, we don't have a media studies course anymore. We used to at one time. However, a lot of our teachers have integrated media and media studies into some of the lessons and just assessment pieces that they do for students. For example, giving students the ability to do their assessments or their final activities or something using a video, okay, or making a video, that kind of thing. I know our senior English teacher had students doing podcasts, okay, for poems they made and doing and making movies and stuff like that. So we do incorporate some of that stuff in, even though we don't teach the media per se in a course here anymore. Although it may be taught in some other schools in our board. I'm not aware of that though. And the other thing I was going to mention too, just in terms of talking about, social media and stuff. And we see a lot of that at the school. Obviously, there's those good points, right, that you were mentioning, just in terms of getting everything out there. And in a small school, I see that where it used to be, I came from a big high school, for example, and you had all these little cliques and groups that you could be part of. So if you didn't really fit into a group, you could find someone that you fit into. In our school, I've seen a lot of times where you might have one or two students that don't really fit in with the rest of the clan, and they're looking for those people that they fit in with. And I think in that case, that's where social media could be a great help for them, right? The world is out there now. But there's definitely those evils too. And we see the online bullying and stuff like that. And that's often something that, we're trying to address, even though it's something that doesn't happen out in the open. We still are aware of it and we still try to address it. So.
Yeah, because online bullying, again, that's one of the really negative things about this technology. I mean, there's so many positive things that can be used for, but when you start, getting into a position where you're feeling vulnerable and then you're being targeted, I'm sure that could be quite difficult. And we also have the other side of it where a lot of times people will keep that kind of stuff private, and they don't know who to turn to, like as a person or another adult or a family member, to be able to say, look, this is happening to me, and try and sort it out.
Absolutely.
I think we should talk a little bit about youth addiction and technology. Madeline, is there something you might want to add to the conversation?
Well, I definitely think youth addiction to technology is major these days, especially with all the advancement in media and technology and social media and whatnot. I think it's become that teenagers are a lot more, and young adults are a lot more reliant on their technology, or even just like the internet or social media and whatnot. It can come to the point where it can interfere with your life, and I don't know, it becomes where you absolutely need it. And when you don't have your phone, or you lose your phone, you feel anxious or you're nervous just to not have it on you. And I guess that to that point, it's just, you can't really live. I think it's more you're just isolating yourself from what's going on around you, instead of like indulging yourself in like at home events. Like when I was at home and I started feeling like I was addicted to my phone, I was missing out on a lot of things, like even my siblings' birthdays, and that was happening right around me. I just didn't, like, I wasn't around. I didn't realize I was just so indulged in my phone, and I never took the time to actually sit down with them. Or
you have that phone almost to verify your status or in society, depending on what you have. Have you noticed that yourself, or am I even on track mentioning that?
oh, definitely. I mean, for me, the only reason I stuck with my phone for so long was because I didn't think it didn't seem normal showing up to school without a phone. Everybody else would be told to put their phone on the back shelf because we're in class, but I'd be the only one sitting there without a phone. So it just definitely didn't feel like I was being accepted by my peers. And then I started isolating myself because I felt I wasn't in the same group as them. And that became an issue for me, for sure.
Yeah. And also you might have to be sitting in there with your old 8-year-old cell phone, your iPhone 3 that you inherited from your aunt or something, and someone else has got the latest whatever, and you're almost embarrassed to pull it out at some point, or the other side of it, of course, you just get the latest, greatest, whatever, and you've got to show it off to all your friends.
Yeah, well, when I went to high school, I still didn't have a phone for my first year. So I was carrying around this really large tablet all the time in my pocket. I never pulled it out. I just had it on me to listen to music or contact my parents and whatnot. But it definitely was a bit embarrassed of that.
I don't think you're the kind of person who would really care about that anyways. You probably just thought, I'm in my world, this is me.
Yeah,
Deal
exactly.
with it.
Mhm.
One of the last points I want to just quickly touch on before we end this today is the role of technology in education. And we briefly discussed it, but I thought from a teacher's perspective, Mr. Blackwood, you could tell us a bit about how the technology has maybe made your job easier, made it more difficult, caused you to adapt to different things. Some of the older teachers probably are just waiting for the day they can retire so they don't have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah, possibly. But to be honest with you, I mean, we've all embraced the role that technology has played. Our daily job is all about technology now. From the day we walk, the time we walk into a class, we're doing our attendance online. Everything's online. Everything's that way. There's no pen and paper stuff anymore. We're keeping track of things virtually. Yeah, so we have everything on our laptops, and our day plans are there now. With our schools, we have people dedicated just to technology in the schools, where that was never a thing before. It was all pen and paper, back photocopying and all that sort of thing. Back in my when I first started out here, computers weren't a thing. The biggest technology was a photocopier that you didn't have to Xerox things or anything like that, right? So yeah, it's definitely changed, and it's embedded in everything we do. It really is. I think the job would be very hard to do now without technology, and I don't think it's ever going to change. We're moving forward with that, and it's either embrace it or get lost, right? Like you're going to get lost in the shuffle, and you're just going to fall behind. So I mean, it was a challenge. I'll be honest. It was a challenge for me to get used to a lot of things. I've had to learn a lot of different programs. I've had a lot of different platforms that I've used over the years. For example, in CoOp, I use like probably 3 or 4 different platforms that I've never used before. With COVID and everything, it sort of saved our day a little bit in terms of being able to stay with our students and see them and continue their education. So, you know, there's definitely good things about all this technology for sure. And the job just has changed a lot, and it's going to continue to change. So where it's going to be in the future, I don't know, but it probably only going to get better.
Yeah. And I think COVID's given us a pretty good preview of what where education is going. I mean, I think about what's happened, and what if you know, Zoom hadn't come along at that time and everything else as well. Madeline, maybe you can just mention that briefly. Do you miss being in class, or do you prefer being at home studying?
Oh, I definitely prefer being in class. I definitely get way too distracted, and I can't manage my time well being at home, and there's always so much going on because I have a big family, so it definitely isn't for me. I'm definitely more used to the original way of going to class, getting your lessons, doing your assignments, and going home. But now you get it like an assignment every day, and then you have to keep track of your assignments, and when you have to get them done by, it can definitely screw me up big time.
Yeah, I found as well, and I had to work from home last year. You seem to take a lot longer to get less done occasionally. Like you've got that, you don't have that pressure at the time. You know, you're not looking at the clock and worrying about stuff, because your attitude as well. Take a break first, and I can get back to it later. And then you get back to it later, and you've got to build into your pace again and get going. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big procrastinator too, so it doesn't help.
I think that's one of the other problems of working from home. It makes it very easy to be a procrastinator, and you can almost justify it because, you know, I'll do it later.
Yep, exactly. My last class online, fully in grade 10, I didn't do any of my assignments until the very last day. I was up all night, and I think I got them all done. It just procrastinated all the way till the end.
Can I just mention something in terms of what Madeline was just talking about in terms of, you know, the personal in-class student-teacher relationship? That's the one thing that I really missed, and I think pretty much all the teachers missed when this stuff went online and virtual. And, you know, if that is the future of education, I don't think it's going to be better, to be honest with you. And most students, I think, would agree they'd prefer to be in the classroom. You know, you're always going to have students that, like Madeline was talking about, finishing her assignments last minute. You're always going to have students doing that, whether it's in class or online. But I think definitely I've seen a big shift in terms of more students being procrastinators and maybe not having the desire to do it while they are doing it from home, type of thing. So, yeah.
Different discipline.
Yeah.
Madeline?
Well, just about the procrastination, I definitely don't think I'm natural procrastinator, but when I'm at home, for sure, the motivation when you get in class and just being able to do something for your teachers, like absolutely hate disappointing people. So when I'm in class, I try and get my work done so I don't seem like fall behind and stuff. And then again, with peer acceptance, if you're the only one with assignments that are overdue, then you're kind of feeling left out, and I don't like that feeling, definitely.
Well, I'd like to thank you both for joining me today. It's been a really interesting discussion. Mr. Blackwood, thank you for your perspective on education and the way the kids are learning nowadays. And Madeline, thank you very much for partaking in this. And I really look forward to seeing you in the studio again really, really soon when you come into the library once we open up again.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kim. Bye, Madeline. Bye, Kim.